Sorry about that, folks. Thanks for joining us this Friday morning. So we have a really, I think it's going to be a really interesting talk for you folks. The last one we talked about the website refresh. This one we're really down to more the nuts and bolts for projects. So we're really excited actually to introduce Thanh Ha, who's our release engineer here at the Eclipse Foundation. So he's going to give us a quick talk about some of our infrastructure here, our build infrastructure, some best practices around Git and Garret. So I'm really excited, and so let's get started here. So thanks a lot, Thanh, for agreeing to come on air here, and this is really awesome. So can you give me a little bit more of an idea about your role here at the Eclipse Foundation? I know you're a release engineer, but not everyone I know what that is, and I actually had to look it up myself. What was what exactly is a release engineer? So can you give us a little insight on that?
Right, so like you said, I'm the release engineer at the Eclipse Foundation. What that means is I actually spend a lot of time working on what we call CBI, or the Common Build Infrastructure. And I work with various projects at Eclipse to get them moving over to our CBI project. And what that typically means is like getting them to build with Maven Tycho using Git. Common sets of use that we're recommending projects all use. That way it's easier for a contributor to come work on one project, and then if they get excited about another project, it'll be very similar experience when they switch to another project or contributing to multiple projects. I also work on maintaining some of our infrastructure related to building, such as our Hudson servers, Git servers, the Nexus server for where a project can deploy Maven artifacts, etc.
That's quite a bit, actually. That's quite a bit. The Nexus repo is really kind of exciting me. I know there's been some chats with the working groups earlier this week, and that was something that a lot of the folks are really pushing for is the Nexus. They're all sort of Maven central here, so that's kind of cool. So you're touching the CBI and Nexus. What's one interesting project that you're working on at the moment here to help the projects of the foundation?
So one thing I'm looking into doing this quarter actually is right now the community is running a server for Sonar, which is a code analysis tool, and currently it's entirely maintained by the community, but we're looking into pulling it into the foundation and running it as a foundation managed service. It's pretty exciting because with that we can, when we take it over, we can hook it up to our LDAP backend, and that way committers get more access to the system and they can actually log into Sonar and configure things, rather than today where all they can do is configure their build to run it through the code analysis and look at the results synonymously.
Okay, so let's talk about the foundation. And give us a quick overview of the infrastructure we have for projects to use and to build with, because that's really not key for projects. So just a little rundown on what we have, what projects have, can get access to, and builds.
Right, so our infrastructure consists of a few servers. First is our Git servers, which is where all the code is stored. We're also optionally allowing projects to opt into Gerrit, which is another type of Git server that enables code reviews on using the web. So instead of just storing your code in a repo and then checking it out and working on it, you can also collaborate via the web and add comments to various code sections, and that's what's really handy about Gerrit. And we found it's a lot of contributors are saying it's a lot easier to contribute that way than the old way where they attach a patch to like Zilla. Another one is our Hudson servers. In the past 2 years, we've extended it to hit another server we're calling HIP, which is a bunch of Hudson servers for each project. We also have build.eclipse.org, where projects can get a shell account to log into a build server and run some builds using our build infrastructure like internally, rather than just running it on their computers. And also Nexus for deploying artifacts, or Maven artifacts to be exact.
Well, that's quite a bit of infrastructure. So you mentioned Git as our source control system. What options do they have? In terms of Git hosted here, or using a GitHub account. So they can have either. Is that true?
Sorry, what was that again?
So in terms of the source control, here we use Git. What options do they have in terms of that? In terms of they want to host a repo here, or they want to have a GitHub account. What options do projects have with that?
Right. So if they use Git at the foundation, we have a Git server, and it just hosts the code. We also, like I said earlier, optionally allow them to use Gerrit, which gives them a little more features. So like a nice interface for code review and commenting on code before actually merging into your repository. And something new we've been providing to projects in the past, I guess, past year is GitHub, the ability to use GitHub rather than using the infrastructure here.
So, with all our IP due diligence and other, the ADP process that we have to be, projects have to follow. What are some of the conditions and restrictions that we have in place for GitHub, right? I know we have a few. If you don't mind just going over those.
Right. So with GitHub, it's the support is a little more limited because it's not a service we have access to. So if the service goes down, we can't really touch it. To use it though, you do still need a foundation or an Eclipse.org account, and then once you create your account, you'll log in and you can provide us your GitHub user ID, and that'll link your foundation account to GitHub. That's how we can tell if you've signed your CLA. And we have a CLA checker on GitHub, which will verify that a contributor has signed the CLA before a committer makes the decision whether or not to merge a patch.
I know one of the things that some projects have asked about in the past is using GitHub issues, and unfortunately we can't use those here. You actually have to migrate all your issues into Bugzilla. So it's sort of an FYI there for that. So you already mentioned HIP. Can you kind of talk about? You mentioned briefly what that is, but I know there's some future plans for that. Can you expand on those a little bit?
Right. So with HIP, we're giving every project their own HIP service or their own Hudson instance. Because before we used to run a shared instance where the many projects were all running builds on the exact same server, and we ran some scaling issues where the server was it wouldn't run as well, or it starts to hang once too many jobs start running. And we've actually found the performance a lot better now that we're deploying one Hudson service per project. And moving forward, we're looking into allowing the various HIP servers to also have slaves, so that projects can build with different Linux distros. Because right now we're deploying with SUSE, and there's some projects who've been requesting other distros like Red Hat or Fedora, Ubuntu, whatever. So we're exploring that right now. Also allowing Windows slaves is something we're looking into.
So with Hudson, that's continuous integration. Is there so why should a project be using continuous integration and then contrasting with that? Like, are there instances where a project wouldn't be continuous integration, or it doesn't make sense for a project?
In my opinion, I think all projects should use continuous integration, especially if they have resources to use it. And what that allows them to do is basically makes their lives a little easier, right? So with continuous integrations, you can integrate it with, for example, Garrett. So when a contributor uploads some code, it'll automatically kick off a build just to run a quick sanity test to make sure the code is okay before a real person actually looks at it. So a contributor could upload code, and then the system would let them know that, hey, there's something wrong with the code. It's not building. Can you take a look at it again? And fix that before a committer comes in and actually spends some time on that code. You could also use it for other things like automated build promotion. So you can run your nightly builds using it, and then it'll automatically copy your artifacts to your project's download. So especially if you're doing nightly builds of some project that you want to provide quick downloads to the absolute latest of your code.
Really, I didn't. Okay, that's I'm not really involved in building, but that's something I didn't really. No, that's kind of cool actually. So, are we able to? Because I see on you'll go on GitHub and you see projects themselves link up their build servers. Is that something that projects can do here if they're hosted on GitHub?
With GitHub, you can still use Hudson to build, but it's the integration is not as well supported because it's a service that we don't really have access to and we can't control.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm just kind of curious because something that I've seen. So, but I think you already mentioned in terms of because we're talking about Git and GitHub, but so if you have a GitHub account, we mirror everything back to our infrastructure here. So just so folks are aware of that. So you mentioned Gerrit. Now, I've never used Gerrit myself. I use Git a little bit for some of my stuff. Can you kind of contrast, the workflows? How are they different? What are some best practices around using both? Gerrit's optional right now, right? So how can a project change its workflow to start using Gerrit? Can you speak a little more to some of those?
Right. So Gerrit's optional. And the reason it's optional right now is because currently Gerrit doesn't support our redundant servers, so that's why we're not making it mandatory at the moment. We can't support it if, or we can't add extra servers in case the load goes too high. But we've heard from the Gerrit project they're working on it, so hopefully we'll be able to support that soon. But with Gerrit, it gives us finer permissions controls than Git ever did, because Git is at the file system level, you can only assign groups or users to the ownership, whereas with Gerrit we can actually pick apart can this person create a branch or not, or if they can even push to a branch, or you can force them to not be able to push directly to a branch, but they have to send it to code review. So you can change the workflow. So if a project wants to make it absolutely required that every single piece of code has to be reviewed before it gets merged in, Gerrit can enable that. Whereas with something like GitHub, you can't stop someone from merging directly into the repo rather than sending a pull request. Also with Gerrit, there's the web-based code review, so you can just go in and look at code and comment on specific lines of code. And of course, it can integrate pretty well with Hudson. So once a contributor sends new code to Hudson or to your repo for review, you can set it up so Gerrit or Hudson will kick off a build right away. And we found it's a lot easier for the community to contribute to a project, because before the process was very there was a lot of more steps involved. They had to attach it to Bugzilla, and someone else would have to take that patch down and test it and run it. Whereas Gerrit will do all that inside of the Gerrit interface, and you can look at the patch right in the Gerrit interface and comment on it. And also with Gerrit, we've integrated the CLA checker. So before a contributor even pushes code for review, we've already checked that they've signed the CLA, and if they didn't sign it, we reject their push and we give them a link saying, hey, you need to sign your CLA, you need an account at this place, go to this link. So it's all pretty handy.
That's kind of neat. I like the idea where you're talking about, it's integrated with with your build server there, right? So you can almost, I think you might have mentioned this before, where you can build, check in, and then give it a +1, and then someone can actually come and look at if it actually passed to move forward. So that's kind of a neat idea, right? So you already know right away whether the code is quality and it didn't break your build, right? Before you actually start reviewing it. So I think that's definitely a time saver there. So we talked about all the individual components. Can you kind of give us a typical workflow for a project? When you're developing and you're building, from start to output.
Right, sure. I can show you like a typical workflow that I normally would do. Just let me share my browser here. Right, so you see my browser? Right.
Yeah.
Right, so I actually had a bug I opened yesterday that we can look at. Right, so typically for me, my work usually starts off with a Bugzilla bug. So I created this convenient, easy one to do yesterday. So the README file is missing a link to our brand new site docs we just added. So normally I'd go, I look at the bug. If there's a description, I'd read it. In this case, it was simple enough. I just put it all in the heading. And then I would switch to, I would check out my code. So let me switch to my Java view here. Right, so I would go in Eclipse and open my text editor for whatever the file. So here I have the README open, and then we can add the new site docs. Let's just make sure this link works first. Right there. So yeah, so I just made a change to thing, and I'm ready to push it up to Gerrit. So what I'd do is I'd switch to my Git view, and I'd commit. Pretty good practice to put the bug that you're working on in your commit message. So that's what I usually do. And then we'll add that to sign it off. And commit. Right, and then I'll push it up for review now. So here. So with Garrett, there's a special reference point you have to push to. It's refs 4, and then the name of the branch that you want to push to for review. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going to push my patch I just made. Suspect it's going to fail because I need the change ID, so let me copy that in first. Right, so in the CBI repositories, we actually force the change ID. That way, if you ever update your patch, Garrett knows that it goes within a certain change. Otherwise, Garrett will make a brand new change every time, which could get annoying if you're actually expecting to be updating a certain patch. So let's try that again. Right, and that was success. So then it gave me a link here, which I can copy to my browser. Right, and here we have the code review I just made. And if we click on the side-by-side here, we can look at what what changes I just made. So you can see here I added the site docs here with whatever. And you can see Hudson immediately already started a build, and it already reported that it was successful. So if I wanted, I could merge this. Of course, this was a very trivial change. I was just editing a README file, so I was expecting too much. And yeah, and if I agreed, I could just click review and then merge it. But I'm just going to leave it here for now for a couple days. Yeah, just so that other people have time to comment and make some other changes if they want to.
No, that's great. It's always kind of neat to great to actually see a demo, right? And you walk through the different portions of it, right? So, after the video here, folks, we'll have some links up, of the infrastructure documentation and some of the parts we talked about here with the Hudson and Git and Garrett and also I'll post those. Look for those in the comments of the video here. But that's really neat. That's really kind of a quick workflow there. I actually add that change really quick and actually go look on the web and see right away. And that's really slick actually, very, very slick. So we're kind of running out of time here. We're getting close to our 10 o'clock. So just two quick last questions here. So, sort of the catch-alls. Anything else you want to talk about that projects should know about? And so if folks have any questions, issues, suggestions, bugs, how do they get in touch? What do they do?
Right. So yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything. So there's really nothing else. If there's any suggestions or comments, definitely open a bug on Bugzilla. So go to bugs.eclipse.org and just create a new bug under the component for Foundation Eclipse Foundation community, and then just find the category that's closest to what you're looking for, and then we'll have a look at it when we see it.
Oh, that's easy. That's too easy, right? So anyways, folks, if you have any questions, certainly email them. emo@eclipse.org, or you can touch base webmaster@eclipse.org. Probably the best vehicle about any of these particular things, if you have issues, is actually, like Tom said, open a ticket, and then these guys are fantastic. They'll on the tickets right away. So anyways, folks, thanks for joining in. Look forward to your comments. If you have anything you want to suggest for the upcoming Hangouts, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to get some of you folks on here, talking about some of your projects you're working on and that. So I'll definitely be reaching out shortly. And thanks a lot, Tom. That was awesome. I really definitely learned quite a little bit more here today, and I hope you guys did out there. Anyways, have a great weekend, folks, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. All right, thanks.